The morning in San Francisco was wrapped in its usual hustle and bustle. Judith Bradford was making final checks for her next presentation while looking down at the bay from her office on the 32nd floor of a high-rise building. Judith was a well-known figure in the airline industry. Her sharp insights and execution skills as a marketing strategy consultant had saved numerous airlines from crisis, and sometimes even propelled companies on the brink of bankruptcy to the top of the industry. The family photo on her desk showed her parents, Barbara and Thomas, and her sister Vanessa. The only photo of Judith herself was from her college graduation over 10 years ago. Her relationship with her family seemed to grow more distant the more successful her career became. "There's a call from the CEO of American Skyways," her secretary Martha announced through the intercom. "Thank you, can you put him through?" Judith responded in a calm voice. She already knew this call could lead to a $50 million contract. After finishing the call, she picked up her smartphone and found an unread message from her sister. "About Mom and Dad's 40th anniversary party, Emma really wants to see you. When are you going to show your face?" Judith let out a small sigh. Her bond with her family was complicated, especially with her mother Barbara. Barbara always favored Vanessa and pretended to be indifferent to Judith's success. "Business is such a cold thing. Family is what truly matters," was Barbara's constant refrain. Her father Thomas was a retired physician who now spent his time on his hobbies of golf and stock investments. He showed a certain respect for Judith's work, but influenced by his wife, there was a clear difference in how he treated his daughters. Vanessa was married to Michael Harrington, a prominent corporate lawyer, and lived as a full-time homemaker. She claimed to devote herself entirely to raising her 2-year-old daughter Emma, but in reality, spent much of her time going to spas several times a week, lunching with friends, and shopping. Meanwhile, Michael was known as an excellent lawyer with an annual income that reached 7 figures. The doorbell rang. "It's a delivery," Martha informed her again through the intercom. It was an envelope from her parents. Inside was a brochure for a family trip planned for the following week. Under the title, 7 Days at a Luxury Resort in Hawaii, was a message card for the family. "Dear Judith, this is to inform you of this year's family trip. Unfortunately, you are not invited. You probably can't participate anyway because you're too busy with work, as usual. But we are proud of your success. Love, Mom." Judith gave a bitter smile. She had never actually been invited. They always assumed she was too busy, and then later said, "That's too bad." She put the brochure in her desk drawer and was about to get back to work when her smartphone rang again. It was from Vanessa. "Can you come to Mom and Dad's house tomorrow? We have something important to discuss." She hesitated. Important discussions from her family were rarely good for her. However, it was also an opportunity to see Emma, whom she hadn't met in a while. "All right. Is around 6 p.m. okay?" she replied. Judith parked her car in front of her parents' house and took a deep breath. She grabbed her designer handbag and headed to the entrance of the luxury apartment building. Before ringing the doorbell, she checked her outfit. A gray tailored suit with a pearl necklace. "Perfect," she whispered softly. "Ah, you finally came," Barbara said as she opened the door. "Everyone's been waiting for you." Entering the living room, she found her father Thomas, her sister Vanessa, and her adorable 2-year-old niece Emma. Emma was wearing a pink dress and playing with a doll. When she saw Judith's face, Emma showed a smile. "Aunt Judith!" Emma shouted happily and toddled toward Judith on her little feet. Judith crouched down and picked up Emma. "Hello, Princess. I've been wanting to see you." Emma seems to be fond of you," Vanessa's voice had a tinge of jealousy. She pushed back her perfectly styled blonde hair and adjusted the sleeve of her expensive cashmere sweater. "What's going on?" "You said there was something important to discuss," Judith asked, looking alternately at her parents and Vanessa. Thomas cleared his throat and said, "Sit down." His voice was gentle but somewhat tense. When Judith sat on the sofa, Vanessa pushed a stroller into the center of the room. Next to it was a large travel bag. Judith looked confused. Vanessa began to speak with a gentle smile. "Do you remember the Hawaii trip starting tomorrow? We need a little help from you." "Help?" Judith frowned. Vanessa took Emma from Judith's arms and said, "Yes. Actually, Emma's daycare teacher was suddenly hospitalized. And the babysitter I had arranged canceled on me." "Wait a minute," Judith interrupted. "What are you trying to say?" Barbara approached with a beaming smile. "We want you to take care of Emma. Just for 1 week." 1 week. Judith's voice rose in surprise. "But I have work." "Work?" Barbara snorted with contempt. "It's always work with you. Being single with no children, you should have time to make for your family." Thomas intervened modestly. "I understand your work is important, but aren't family bonds just as important?" As Judith was about to object, Vanessa placed a memo on the coffee table. "Take care of her. Thanks, babysitter," was written in large letters with a pink pen. "What is this?" Judith was dumbfounded as she picked up the memo. "Don't worry," Vanessa said, waving her hand. "Everything you need to take care of Emma is here. Diapers, clothes, toys, a list of foods, and emergency contacts. Oh, right. I've also written about her allergies." Judith was speechless. Her family was proceeding as if it was already decided, without waiting for her answer. "Are you serious?" Judith finally managed to say. Barbara placed a hand on her shoulder and smirked. "Since you're not invited, make yourself useful." Those words pierced Judith's heart like an icy arrow. Not invited. Being useful. Her position within the family had never been expressed so bluntly. "Emma is a quiet child," Vanessa said while organizing the luggage. "It will be a good experience for you too. If you ever have children in the future." Judith took a deep breath. Trying not to show emotion on her face, she looked at Emma. The innocent 2-year-old was playing with a toy unicorn, unrelated to the ugly maneuvering of these adults. "All right," Judith said quietly. "I'll take care of Emma." Barbara and Vanessa showed expressions of relief. Thomas gave an apologetic smile but showed no sign of stopping his wife and daughter. "See, I told you," Vanessa whispered to Barbara. "Judith can't refuse." "Yes. This is her form of contribution to the family," Barbara answered with satisfaction. The next morning, Judith carried Emma to her parents' house. She had been thinking about her next move all night. "Good morning," she greeted the family gathered at the entrance. They had already prepared for the trip and were waiting for a taxi. "You're driving us to the airport?" "How kind," Barbara said with a surprised look. "Of course. We're family, after all," Judith smiled refreshingly. In the car to the airport, Barbara and Vanessa were enthusiastically discussing their plans in Hawaii. Emma was sleeping quietly next to Judith. "We've arrived." Judith stopped the car in front of the departure terminal at the airport. She gently picked up Emma and went inside with the family. Heading toward the check-in counter, there was a long line. But Judith unhesitatingly bypassed the line and headed to a different counter. "Where are you going?" Vanessa asked with a confused look. "To check in," Judith said without looking back. "But the line is here," Barbara said, not hiding her irritation. Judith stopped and said, "You line up there. I'll check in somewhere else since I'm carrying Emma." Barbara, Thomas, and Vanessa followed her instructions reluctantly. 20 minutes later, when the family reached the check-in counter, they were greeted by a cold-faced clerk. "I'm sorry, but your flight has been cancelled," the clerk stated flatly. "Cancelled?" What do you mean? Barbara raised her voice. All flights to Honolulu today have been cancelled due to bad weather, the clerk explained. The next available seats are in 3 days. 3 days? You've got to be kidding. Vanessa shouted, her face reddening. What about our resort reservation? Amid the confused family, Judith quietly appeared. She was holding Emma and wearing a calm smile. What's wrong? She asked innocently. The flight has been cancelled, Barbara said, not hiding her anger. Making us line up and now this. Judith quietly shook her head. It's not my fault. It's the weather. The family glared at her accusingly. At that moment, a female staff member approached from another counter. Ms. Bradford, sorry to keep you waiting. The private lounge is ready. Barbara, Thomas, and Vanessa looked surprised. Judith smiled back and said, have a good trip. Then, carrying Emma, she followed the staff. Watching the female staff elegantly guiding Judith and Emma, Barbara, Thomas, and Vanessa stood frozen with shocked expressions. Was that a VIP entrance? Vanessa whispered in disbelief. The three hurriedly tried to follow Judith. Stopped at the security gate, they watched as Judith and Emma passed through a special corridor. Emma waved her little hand and innocently shouted, "Bye-bye." What's going on here? Barbara said, not hiding her irritation. That girl, I hope she hasn't done something behind our backs. Thomas quietly grabbed his wife's arm. Calm down. Clearly Judith has something we don't know about. After somehow passing through the security gate, the three lost sight of Judith in the vast airport concourse. There she is. Vanessa pointed toward a luxurious entrance marked Executive Crown Lounge, exclusive for American Skyways VIP members. Through the glass doors, they could see Judith seating Emma on a sofa and receiving some kind of drink from the staff. I doubt they'll let us in, Barbara peered through the glass with her hand. What is that girl doing? Are you the Bradford family? Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Turning around, they saw a male staff member in an American Skyways uniform. Yes, we are. Barbara immediately softened her attitude and showed an elegant smile. My daughter Judith is inside. Of course, I know. I've been instructed to guide you in at her request. The three entered the VIP lounge, confused but following the staff. Inside was incredibly luxurious, with gentle classical music playing and champagne and gourmet snacks laid out. Judith was relaxing with Emma. There was a small cupcake and juice in front of Emma, and she was happily eating. What is this? As Vanessa opened her mouth, Judith's smartphone rang. Excuse me, Judith answered the phone. Yes, Robert. Yes, I understand the situation. So all flights are cancelled. I see. Yes, I'm with my family right now. Yes, about their Hawaii trip. While talking, she quickly tapped something on a tablet handed to her by a staff member. I understand. A private jet? That's too much. But, considering Emma, that might be best. Yes, as part of our contract, that's possible. Thank you, I'll call you later. The three stared at Judith in amazement as she hung up the phone. That call was? Thomas asked. Robert King, Judith answered concisely. The CEO of American Skyways. You're friends with the CEO? Vanessa asked in disbelief. Judith gave a small laugh. More like business partners than friends. My company handles their marketing strategy. We just signed a $50 million contract last month. $50 million? Barbara's voice trembled. Yes, Judith said matter-of-factly. And I'm also an Executive Crown top-tier member. I'm somewhat known in the airline industry. She continued while gently stroking Emma's head. Robert says that due to the weather, all commercial flights have been cancelled, but the company's private jet is preparing to fly to Honolulu. For us. Us? Vanessa opened her eyes wide. Yes, Emma and me, Judith smiled refreshingly. As for you all, well, I hope you find alternative flights. Barbara stepped forward with an expression mixing anger and surprise. Wait a minute. Emma is our family. We left her with you as a babysitter, not for you to take her away on your own. Babysitter? Judith raised an eyebrow. Oh, you mean this memo? She pulled out Vanessa's memo. Take care of her. Thanks, babysitter. LOL. That was a joke, Vanessa said, looking disturbed. Really? Mom said, since you're not invited, make yourself useful. I'm just taking care of Emma in the most efficient way. Judith's smartphone rang again. She looked at the screen and said, it's from Michael, and answered the call. She explained the situation concisely. From the other end of the phone, Michael's angry voice could be clearly heard. Judith occasionally responded with, that's right, or, no, she's fine, while staring at Vanessa. I understand. See you at the airport then, she ended the call. Michael is coming here right away, Judith announced quietly. It seems he didn't know anything about what happened this morning. Well. Vanessa faltered. I told him that. I had urgent work. I see, Judith replied calmly. But he was supposed to go to Hawaii with Emma's grandparents, right? Yet you didn't tell him anything and pushed Emma onto me. Barbara looked anxiously at her husband. Thomas let out a deep sigh. Judith, perhaps our approach wasn't appropriate, but... Not appropriate. Judith said without changing her tone. Dad, this isn't just a matter of being rude. This shows how I'm treated as a family member. She picked up Emma. Staff, could you bring a little more children's food and drinks for Emma, please? The staff responded immediately, and minutes later, various kid-friendly snacks and juices were brought. Emma clapped her little hands in delight. Aunt Judith, yummy. Vanessa frowned. She doesn't usually smile like that. That's a pity, Judith replied calmly. She's a wonderful child. 15 minutes later, the VIP lounge door opened, and Michael Harrington walked in with quick steps. His expression was filled with anger. What the hell is going on? He raised his voice toward Vanessa. You dumped Emma on Judith without asking and lied to me. Michael, calm down, Barbara tried to intervene. This is just a... Shut up, Barbara, Michael said forcefully. This is your fault too. I've been watching how you and Thomas have treated Judith for years. And now my wife is becoming just like you. He turned to Judith. I'm really sorry, Judith. I didn't know about this plan. Vanessa told me that a new babysitter for Emma had been found, so I thought. Don't worry about it, Michael, Judith said gently. Emma is a wonderful child. It's fun being with her. Michael showed a relieved expression. Thank you. You're always so understanding. He approached Emma and picked up his daughter. I'm sorry, Princess. Daddy didn't know. Michael gave Vanessa a stern look. This is the last time. I won't tolerate your selfish behavior anymore. What are you saying? Vanessa said, looking upset. I was just. Just what? Michael lowered his voice, but his anger was evident. Dumping a babysitter on Judith without permission, lying to me, and hurting her by saying she's not invited. He turned to Barbara and Thomas. You two are just as guilty. You know how successful Judith is, yet you've always treated her like the extra person in the family. Michael. Vanessa raised her voice. What are you saying? Don't say such things in front of us. But Michael continued calmly. Do you know? I know how respected Judith's company is in the airline industry. She's the kind of person who dines with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Yet in her family. He sighed. Let me be honest. I was considering divorce. Vanessa, I'm reaching my limit with your self-centered behavior. Barbara and Thomas turned pale. Losing their elite lawyer son-in-law was their worst nightmare. Judith was whispered something by the lounge staff and nodded. Everyone, she said quietly. The private jet is ready. Emma and I are heading to Hawaii now. She took Emma from Michael and gently hugged her. Please sort out your travel issues yourselves. Don't worry about Emma, she's safe with me. Judith stood up, still holding Emma. Well then. Michael nodded to her and said, Thank you, Judith. I'll call you later. After Judith and Emma left, a heavy silence fell among the family remaining in the lounge. Under the clear blue sky of Hawaii, the private jet landed smoothly. Judith gently cradled the still sleeping Emma and exited the plane. A luxury limousine was waiting on the runway, and the driver bowed deeply as soon as he saw Judith. Ms. Bradford, welcome to Honolulu. I'll take you to the Ocean View Grand Resort. In the limousine, Judith gazed at Emma's sleeping face. This little angel was too pure to be caught up in the ugly maneuvering of adults. We've arrived, miss. The resort was truly grand and luxurious, as its name suggested. As she set foot in the lobby, the hotel manager personally greeted her. We've been expecting you. We received direct contact from Mr. King and have prepared the best hospitality. They were guided to the presidential suite on the top floor. Upon entering the room, Emma woke up and cheered at the vast ocean visible from the window. Ocean. Pretty. Judith smiled. Yes, Emma. Shall we go swimming together? She took out Emma's swimsuit from the bag and changed her. After changing into her own swimsuit, the two headed to the beach hand in hand. On the white sandy beach under the sunlight, Judith spent time building sand castles and swimming in the shallow waters with Emma. Emma's laughter deeply permeated her heart. Aunt Judith, love you. Emma suddenly touched Judith's cheek with her small sand-covered hands. I love you too, Emma, Judith answered with tears in her eyes. At this moment, she keenly felt how much she had been yearning for family. It was an emptiness that couldn't be filled by company success or fame. That night, when they returned to the room, gifts had been delivered by the hotel staff. There was champagne and chocolates from the CEO of American Skyways, along with a teddy bear for Emma. After putting Emma to bed, Judith tilted her glass on the balcony, looking up at the starry sky. 3 days later, the family, who had finally arrived in Hawaii, found Judith and Emma in the lobby of the Ocean View Grand Resort. Emma was wearing a cute sundress and drinking coconut juice next to Judith. Emma was happy to see her parents but didn't try to let go of Judith's hand. Emma, were you okay? Vanessa rushed to her daughter and tried to hug her. But Emma said, Aunt Judith. Love you, and clung to Judith. The blood drained from Vanessa's face. The sight of her daughter being more attached to her sister than to herself inflicted a deep wound on her self-esteem. Ms. Bradford, a hotel staff member approached. I'd like to confirm your dinner reservation. Is 7 p.m. at the Ocean View VIP table correct? Yes, thank you, Judith responded gracefully. Barbara and Thomas stared at their daughter, dumbfounded. Judith, noticing them, casually greeted them. You must be tired. It seems you found an alternative flight. Thomas was at a loss for words. We had no idea about your position. Judith calmly replied, That's because you never asked, Dad. You never seriously inquired about my job. Barbara opened her mouth unpleasantly. To think you were such an important person. But it wasn't right of you to hide your family affairs. I wasn't hiding anything, Judith said quietly. You just never tried to see. Michael stepped forward. Judith, thank you so much for taking care of Emma. You're welcome, Judith answered with a smile. She's a wonderful child. You're lucky she's your daughter. Vanessa frowned at those words. Michael gave his wife a stern look. Judith, can we talk for a moment? Michael said quietly. The two moved to a corner of the lobby. Actually. Michael lowered his voice. I knew the value of your work. I always wondered why you weren't invited. He let out a deep sigh. I am deeply disappointed in Vanessa and my in-laws' behavior. They've been envious of your success and ignored it. Michael. Judith said with a surprised look. Listen, he continued. I'm going to give Vanessa another chance. But if her attitude doesn't change. Judith nodded quietly. I understand. For Emma's sake, I hope it works out. When they returned to the family, Barbara and Thomas had embarrassed expressions but couldn't apologize straightforwardly. Well, Judith said while gently stroking Emma's head, I'm returning to San Francisco tomorrow morning. This room is already paid for, so you can stay as planned. She looked around at the whole family. We can't call ourselves a true family unless we respect each other as family. I am no longer the black sheep of the family. I will cherish the time with people who understand my value. Judith's words had power. They were a mixture of years of pain and newfound confidence. Barbara bit her lip, and Thomas stared at the floor. Vanessa's eyes were a mix of jealousy and resentment. However, only Emma looked up at Judith with pure affection. Aunt Judith, come again. Of course, Emma, Judith smiled. I promise. A year had passed since then, and many things had changed. But the special bond between Emma and Judith had only deepened. Aunt Judith, look. Emma threw a small ball and laughed happily. Her smile still warmed Judith's heart. Well done. Judith applauded. Watching this scene from a distance were Vanessa and Michael. They sat on a bench, watching their daughter and sister-in-law. Their relationship is really special, Vanessa said quietly. The jealousy that was once in her voice had mostly disappeared. Yes, Michael nodded. Judith is a wonderful role model for Emma. Strong, smart, and caring. Vanessa slightly frowned at her husband's words but quickly softened her expression. Over the past year, she had continued a difficult journey of facing herself. After the incident in Hawaii, Michael seriously considered divorce. As a condition to avoid it, he proposed couples counseling and individual therapy. Although reluctant at first, Vanessa accepted the conditions out of fear of losing Emma and her husband. Therapy brought her many realizations. It was painful to recognize how her actions had been self-centered and hurtful to others, especially her sister Judith. But she was trying to change bit by bit. Judith will be here soon, Vanessa checked her watch. Is everything ready for the party? Yes, everything is set, Michael said reassuringly. She'll definitely be surprised. Today was a special day. A party to celebrate Judith's promotion to an executive at American Skyways was scheduled to be held at Michael and Vanessa's house. It was Michael's idea, and Vanessa had actively cooperated. Judith. Emma's voice echoed. Turning around, they saw that Barbara and Thomas had arrived at the park. Their relationship had also gradually changed. The initially superficial change in attitude toward Judith became more genuine as they witnessed her success. Especially Thomas was sincerely trying to repair the relationship. He acknowledged his unconscious discriminatory attitude and was trying to build a new father-daughter relationship with Judith. Barbara couldn't be said to have completely changed, but at least she had restrained her obvious favoritism. It's time, Vanessa stood up watching Judith and Emma greeting her parents. Let's prepare for the surprise party. Hours later, Michael and Vanessa's luxurious mansion was filled with laughter and music. Judith wore an expression of surprise and gratitude, surrounded by friends and colleagues. Cheers! Michael raised his champagne glass. To Judith Bradford, the new vice president of marketing at American Skyways. Amid the cheers, Judith smiled quietly. Beside her, Emma stood proudly. In the latter part of the party, Judith was alone on the balcony, gazing at the night view. Quiet footsteps sounded, and she turned to find Barbara. "It's a wonderful party," Barbara said. "I'm glad we can celebrate your success." Judith gazed at her mother. She knew it would still take time for complete reconciliation, but this was a first step. "Thank you," she answered quietly. "You'll join us for the Hawaii trip next month, won't you?" Barbara asked somewhat anxiously. "This time, truly with the whole family." Judith nodded with a smile. "Yes, I'd be delighted." She gazed at the night view again. Life moves in unexpected directions. Sometimes it involves pain, but that can also be the beginning of something new. In Judith's case, it was the beginning of finding her value within her family and building true bonds.